Hi, welcome to this webinar about facilitating successful groups. My name's Sarah Norton and I'm from the Groupwork Centre. I'd like to start off by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands that you and I are on. I'm recording this webinar on Wurundjeri land. I'd like to pay respects to the elders, both past, present and those emerging into the future. Thank them for their custodianship of this beautiful land and hope that we can work in true collaboration with them into the future. So welcome. As I said, this is Facilitating Successful Groups. It's been developed in partnership with the Family Reconciliation Mediation Programme and the Groupwork Centre. So first of all, let's talk about what the Family Reconciliation Mediation Programme is. What is FRUMP and its objectives? The Family Reconciliation Mediation Programme is funded by Victorian Department of Health and Human Services to support young people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness to stay or return home, if safe and appropriate, recover from trauma related to family conflict and breakdown, connect or reconnect with family or other natural supports. And what support does FRUMP Brokerage fund? Individual therapeutic support. That could be counselling, psychotherapy, alternative therapy such as art therapy, music therapy, equine therapy, family therapy and family mediation, group work and group therapy and respite. So it's an amazing program, and I'll talk more about FRUMP and the application process later, that you can actually get support for running groups. Let me now tell you about group work and who we are. Well, we're specialists in facilitation and facilitatory education. We run a year-long course for over 20 years. It used to be an advanced diploma. And really, that's a recognition that facilitation really is a craft and often is not given the credit it deserves. This graphic here shows you what our vision is. It's at the Groupwork Centre, a just and sustainable world. Our purpose is to help people achieve amazing things in groups. And the why is because we believe groups have the capacity to transform the world. So we have, as I mentioned, we run this year-long course. People often finish and say, oh, I just want to start again. I know I did when I did it about 20 years ago. Okay, so let's talk about the purpose of this webinar. It's to explore the benefits of group work and 3 key elements of running successful groups. So this is really a taster. It's a short webinar. It's just to give you an idea of what we think is really important to help you run successful groups. So let me tell you about what that actually includes. We're going to first of all look at the benefits of group work, and then the Groupwork Centre's approach to running groups, the role of the facilitator. So what do they do? What's expected of them? Creating safety in groups, really important element. How to engage participants. Obviously, if they're not engaged or not coming along, got no participants, you're a bit stuck. And then last but not least, definitely, accessing funding from FRUMP. So how can you actually access some funding so you can actually run some groups? So let's start with the benefits of running groups. There's a reflection question here. I want you to think of a group you've been part of or groups that you run now. What are the benefits of being in a group for 1, the participants, and 2, the facilitator? I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to reflect on that. You might want to take some notes, and this is really just to get you thinking about some of these ideas, and then I'll share some ideas with you. So I'll give you 30 seconds. Okay, that's your time up. I wonder what you came up with. Some brilliant ideas, I'm sure. So these are some of the answers that I came up with around that question, the benefits of group work. So getting support from others, so being in it together, getting ideas from others, getting emotional support from others, the normalizing of shared experiences. So that feeling of I'm not in this alone, incredibly powerful to be with people who are experiencing the same challenges, finding out what strategies, so sharing the wisdom, what strategies did they use, what's worked for them. Building social skills. This is true for any group, but particularly for young people. If they haven't had positive experiences with social skills, then this is somewhere they can actually improve theirs. Feeling of companionship. So being able to make connections to create a feeling of belonging for people. We, as humans, we desperately want to belong. If we're not belonging in a family or in a school, then this could be an opportunity for people to actually belong somewhere. A safe space for people to talk about challenges, really important. A sounding board, so bouncing ideas. Oh, I'm thinking about trying this, and what do you think about this? And last but not least, resource effective. So if you look at the resources, time and money that group work takes up in comparison to one-on-one counselling, and obviously you don't get the one-on-one opportunity, but you get all these other benefits, and obviously it's going to be less time and less money if you have a group of 6 to 8 people. So lots of benefits to group work, and I'm sure you came up with quite a lot of those. So let me talk you through our approach at the Group Work Centre to facilitation. So our vision, as I mentioned at the beginning, is a just and sustainable world, and we're inspired by nature. And really nature's the greatest collaborator of all. Obviously there's competition out there, but we really love focusing on the collaboration that happens to make this the beautiful place that we live. So let's start with looking and unpacking this model. So the values. We approach facilitation based on clear values. Now, values to us, I'm sure you're familiar with them, are the one word. So that's honesty, compassion, transparency, those sorts of words, which are really important that we understand what our values are if we're going to be working with groups. And they tie in very closely to the next layer, which is our practical principles. Because this is what makes values come to life in a way. They're our guiding statements based on our values. We often talk about principles as having values with legs. So awareness around these is really important. So for example, a value we have at the Group Work Centre as facilitators, no matter what the purpose, people bring their whole selves to a group. So can you see how that would guide us in how we might behave to people? We understand someone's having a bad day, we'll have compassion for them as opposed to getting annoyed with their behaviour. The next layer up is our self-awareness. So what's going on for us? Recognising our fears, our triggers, managing our responses so that we can be really present to the group. And these four layers actually include in the next one around micro skills, which are our skills to facilitate. This is like our kit bag. So it's stuff like summarising, clarifying, validation. You'll be doing a lot of these naturally in real life. In life, this is really about identifying what the important skills are for facilitation. And then on the outside, we've got frameworks and group processes. So that can be things like decision making, planning, conflict resolution. Our processes are very simple, they make sense, and they're very practical. A lot of facilitation out there often focuses on the frameworks and group processes. We at the Group Work Centre really believe that the process is only as good as the person facilitating it. So we put a lot of effort and energy into looking at what are our values, our principles, our self-awareness, and building our micro skills and continually improving. Because we feel like we say that's 80% of facilitation of the person. So 80% is the person and 20% are the group processes. So I love this approach because for me, this is about building the person, and it supports you to deal with whatever happens in a group. And because we know that we're not working with widgets when we're working in groups, anything can happen. And so this really gives you the wisdom and the confidence to deal with whatever happens. Now that's very exciting in my opinion. Okay. So that's how we approach facilitation. What I wanted to talk about next is the role of the facilitator. And our definition, there's lots of different definitions out there. Our definition really is to make possible the purpose of the group. So it's really important, first of all, that we're really clear about the purpose. If you remember at the beginning of this webinar, I showed you the purpose. If I'm running a group face-to-face, I will often put it up on the wall on a piece of butcher's paper, just so we're really clear about why we're here and what we're doing. It also gives you a container in which to manage, stuff that if people start bringing up information or content that is outside the purpose, then you've got an opportunity to bring them back into that container. Okay, so I want to pick out 4 key functions that I really saw really important as part of the role of the facilitator. So on your left, you've got the task, maintenance, balance. Now, this is all about, in a group, we're obviously gathering so that we can do a task. The challenge is that if we don't have group cohesion or collaboration, then we're going to get unhelpful behaviours like conflict, people disengaging. We're not actually going to accomplish the task as good as we hope we will. So there's this continual balance between, that's why it's on a seesaw, between task and maintenance. So sometimes we'll be getting on really well with the task, but we'll forget about the maintenance, and you'll notice that people might disengage, or you might get little side comments, or things will happen that you suddenly realize the group aren't, it's like the well-being of the group isn't working well. Too much maintenance, you'll get frustrated that people will get frustrated they're not getting on with the task. So again, you're always balancing those two. Purpose and process over on the right. This is really important that we're clear about the purpose. As I mentioned before, what's the purpose we're gathering today? Again, you're creating that container within which to work, and your process is really the design around how you're going to do that. So that might be, okay, I'm starting at A, I want to get to B, I'm going to do some small group work here, or I'm going to do some warming up activities, some icebreakers to get the group to know each other. And in this bit, we might do some individual reflection. So you can, that's the design stuff. So safety is a really important element here. I mentioned that in the beginning. For me, it's critical that people feel safe in a group, both physically and mentally, of course. And I'm going to talk more in a little bit about how we do that and why that is important. But I'm sure the clients you work with, you're very aware of that safety element. And we also talk about self-awareness and positive regard for everyone, otherwise known as love for your group members. And this, to me, again, is vital. That's really, there's a lot of principles sitting in that kind of idea about self-awareness and positive regard. And it is about being there for everyone in the group and having compassion, and understanding that lovely phrase, you today, me tomorrow. Someone who's behaving badly, whatever that looks like, I can do the same tomorrow. So it's all about understanding none of us are perfect. And funny enough, the more I have positive regard for my groups, the more I see the best in people. So yeah, it's kind of a lovely life philosophy as well, I guess. Okay, so they're the elements. I want to talk a little bit more about creating safety in a group, and this idea of what we call groupness. So this middle circle, yellow circle here, is what we would call groupness. So that's what we're always aiming to work towards when we're working with groups. Now, obviously, if you're working with a group for 2 hours, you're not going to get a high level of groupness in there. But if you're working with them over a year at a very deep level, then you're looking to go a lot to create much more safety within that group. So really, the way that the reason that groups come together, when we think about a collection of individuals, which are these orange circles on the outside, and a group, that's the yellow bit in the middle, people come together for a common purpose. So the difference between them is there's a common purpose, there's an interdependency with people once they're part of a group. They feel that sense of belonging, of safety, and they have ownership in the group. You'll often notice their language change from I to we when groups start to really form that level of safety. And I guess thinking about, well, if we had a group of people coming along together and we didn't have a concept of groupness in our mind, then we could launch straight into teaching them or working with them on something or trying to get them to talk about stuff. And if they're not feeling safe, then they're not going to step into these concentric circles into this feeling of safety. So the idea is that we want to be able to create a pathway for them to be able to do that. Because the benefits of creating this groupness is that people will feel safe, which means they'll say what they need to say. They won't hold back. They'll be engaged. they'll feel heard, they'll feel like it's okay to disagree, it's okay to make mistakes. And that's really what we're wanting to create in any group that we work for, because then we're going to achieve a much greater purpose, a bigger purpose, a more high quality purpose with that group if we've got the best, hear all the wisdom, and people are able to relax into themselves. So things that you can get, ways to get people, and I'm sure you have lots of ideas, but ways to get people from a collection of individuals into that groupness space is by giving them little risks, I guess, to step into that space. So things like even asking people to say their name and introduce themselves. Where are they from? What land are they on? What's something they're really proud of last week? Get them to do something like that, a little icebreaker, a gentle one, can really help break down this feeling of, oh, will I be accepted? Will I belong? Being authentically ourselves, modeling open behavior, being authentic, making mistakes ourselves. It's always useful to make a mistake. It shows we're human. So making agreements with groups, that's a really powerful part of this process, is be able to say what's going to help this group work well together. So doing that in a space where the group actually have ownership over that. That's the really important thing, because often some people go in and they say, okay, these are the group rules. Well, then we're suddenly a parent and their children, or the teacher and the student. Whereas if we're actually looking for a more collaborative atmosphere, then actually getting them to come up with the agreements, they're much more likely to, they're going to own them, and they're much more likely to stand by them. So doing all these little, we often talk about that pathway from that collection of individuals into groupness as the road to groupness is paved with risk. And it's good to have that awareness in mind, so that when we're designing our workshop or our hour with our group, that we can start thinking about some ideas that we can include to actually help people take risks, to get to know each other, to connect, to feel safe. And some of that will be facilitation stuff, and some of it is design stuff. So the design is one thing, but also if people take a risk, like they might say something that makes them quite vulnerable, then being able to acknowledge that and catch that and validate it and say, wow, thanks, Mary. That's a big thing to say. I'm really appreciating that you brought that to the group. I'm glad that we can be here to hear that for you, to witness it and support you. So do you see how you can catch someone who's taken a risk? And the other element of this is, so we've got the road to groupness is paved with risk, and the other element, and I love this phrase, is the dance of terror and longing. And this really taps into our underlying stuff about our bringing our whole selves to the group, and need to be accepted. We are social animals at the end of the day, and we have a need to be with our tribe. If we are evicted from our tribe, in generations gone past, millennia gone past, then we're going to be evicted from our tribe, then we're going to get got by something, a woolly mammoth or a saber-toothed tiger is going to get us. So in a way, if we have such a strong need to belong, because to not belong could potentially mean death. And our primal brain at the back of our head will still, amygdala will still kind of have that feeling of that need to belong. So people often turn up to groups with a feeling of a fear that, if they really know me, they won't like me. And yet I really want them to know me. So that's the terror and longing. So as facilitators, we need to be building and maintaining group safety to get the best in the task. And just have this as a thought behind, a framework behind you when you're thinking about groups you might run, to include this concept in your design and your facilitation. Great. Next, we're going to move on to, here we are. So I wanted you to have some time to think about safety in your groups. So what can you do, or do you already do, to build safety in your groups? So I'll give you another 30 seconds to reflect on that. Again, take notes if you feel free, or just reflect on that question, and we'll come back in 30 seconds. Okay, so hopefully you've collected some good ideas from that to take you into your future. Okay, so far in this webinar, we've looked at the benefits of running groups. We've looked at safety, connection, and belonging. You're the best people to know about engagement with your groups because you know your audiences and you know their challenges. There is an engagement framework I wanted to share with you developed by David Rock. You may have heard of it. It's called SCARF model. And what David did was share, he put them into different categories. So we have SCARF stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And I've just included a few kind of key points here that I thought were useful. So if you're looking at trying to positively engage a group around the status, you're looking at valuing their existing skills, highlighting people's contributions. For certainty, you're looking at clear goals and plans and transparent and regular communication. For the autonomy, having choices, involvement in the process. Relatedness, socializing, working in teams, mentoring, buddies. And fairness, generally considering people's opinions, being transparent and consistent with your decision making, and inviting feedback on decisions. So when I read that, I think, well, they're pretty obvious, but I think it's easy in busy lives to kind of forget how important some of these things are. So it's almost like, you know, you could use this as a bit of a checklist and just say, am I doing this? And what other things could I be doing? And here are some of the traps you could fall into. So the sad face is overlooking people's skills and experiences, so not acknowledging them. Public criticism, not catching that when it happens in a group and not dealing with it. Unpredictable behavior, getting the group end up second guessing what you're going to do or what other people are going to do. So, and lack of transparency. And again, we talked about agreements before. That can be a really useful place to set up some agreements around behaviors so that you don't have that unpredictable behavior. Another, under autonomy, some of the traps could be micromanaging, telling versus involving people what to do. This can happen very quickly if we're stressed or under time pressure. Relatedness, so actually having some competition in the group, having people coming in who are unknown players, getting people end up working in isolation. So again, it's keeping an eye out. Oh, look, I've just noticed people have suddenly worked in isolation. What's going on? You need to go into that. Remember the task maintenance? You might need to do some work around the maintenance to help people kind of reconnect and re-relate to each other. Fairness, unequal treatment, lack of agreements or ground rules, and closed processes. So again, they're useful traps to kind of keep an eye out for. And as I'm reading them out, I'm thinking how important principles are, because if we're really clear about our principles, we're less likely to fall into some of these traps because we're going to be more aware of what we need to do within the groups. So they really are great guiding statements. Okay, so that's engagement. I hope that's a useful process. Great work by David Rock there. So what we're going to do now is, I want you to do some more reflection. Again, another just 30 seconds. You know your audience and their needs and challenges. How might you engage your clients in a group? So just have 30 seconds to think about this and what answers you came up with. Okay, hopefully you came up with some good ideas. I'm sure you did. So we're coming to the end of the webinar now. So let's talk a little bit about the Family Reconciliation Mediation Program. They provide statewide support to the following areas: Metropolitan Melbourne, Barwon, Gippsland, Grampians, Hume, and Loddon Mallee. Two main components to their program: brokerage and sector development. So how can they support you in the brokerage? Individual therapeutic support, family therapy and family mediation, group work and group therapy, and respite. And they really encourage you to be innovative when planning group work and to seek the young people's input to ensure participation. and the staff can support you before you put the application in if you want to get some guidance on that. And I guess importantly, who is eligible for front brokerage? A young person is eligible if they're experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness, are aged 16 to 25 years, have consented to and are ready to engage in the specified intervention, have a case plan which is aligned with front objectives. And who can submit? Can only be submitted by a professional who's providing support or case management to an eligible young person. So that's the brokerage. And in the sector development, Frump supports individuals, organisations and networks working within the youth homeless sector by sharing relevant information, providing network and professional development opportunities, and advocating to raise awareness of the issues facing young people at risk or of experiencing homelessness as a result of family breakdown. And there's some information there about their website, and you can sign up to their newsletter. So obviously this is part of the sector development that they've brought me along to share this webinar with you. So thank you very much, Frump. And also this is their contact details, their allocated regions, Poppy, Nat and Linda, all gorgeous women doing amazing jobs. And you can contact the team through the information there. So thank you very much for attending the webinar today. I really hope it's been useful to you. I love running groups and I feel like it's a great way for us to, have a great personal contribution to the world as facilitators to make the world a better place. If you're interested in finding out more about group work and our facilitation training, our information's up there on the website. So you can go into our website or also go directly to our introduction to facilitation. It's a 2-day training. It digs a lot deeper into the content we've been looking at today, and also looks at our self-awareness model and principles and all sorts of exciting things. So thank you very much. Go well. I hope you have a wonderful time running groups.